A lot of people just look at a mug as a mug.
Just a mug.
But
it's just not. But it is in so many circumstances. And it's so important today, especially today. I feel this more than ever now because people are so disconnected from nature and they're so disconnected from things around them because they're constantly looking at screens. And if you see a piece of pottery on Instagram, well, you're only seeing one side of it. And it's a tactile thing. And, if it's heavy or if it's light or if it's like not totally round. Those are, I think about that all the time. It's just like that's humanness in the clay. So I'm Kent Harris, and I'm the owner and potter here at Blue Sage Pottery in Amarillo, Texas. The clay records everything you do to it. You can't help it. I love it. In my classes, I see this with people, they just want to try to control everything. You cannot control it, until you've done it a really long time, and then you don't really want to control it. It's like a river coming out of you. It's really awesome. I think for me, it all started, I was born in Western North Carolina, and my parents collected pots to use in the house. And that's where I was born in Asheville, North Carolina, is the heart really of American craft. And so, there's some pieces that go back in our family over 100 years, but it was never a thing to be coveted. They were always things to be used. And I think, looking back, that growing up in a house where there were handmade mugs around and handmade bowls and we were using them, it just kind of got into me a little bit. And so I took a class in high school and I tried the potter's wheel and I loved it, but I didn't think about it until much later. And I came back to it in college. And that's where I met Megan, my wife, and she was doing her post-bac at WT in ceramics. And so that's how it all happened. And then we went to the University of North Texas. And at University of North Texas, that was the top ceramics program in the country. And it was just right for me. And when I left there, I knew that's exactly what I was going to do. So I was going to be a studio potter in America, even though it seemed like that was impossible. And I'll tell you, the thing that really did it to me was in one of my critiques with my professor, Elmer Taylor at University of North Texas. He told me it was impossible to be a studio potter in America and actually make a living. And that was one of his ways, looking back later, because we became friends later. That was his way to motivate me and send me on. Like, if you think you can do it, then you can do it, And so I did. We left UNT because he had told me that. And I said, you're right. I don't need to be here. I'm just going to go do it. That's how it really happened. My wife, Megan, and I started in 2003, actually in Canyon first. And we opened the business as just, we needed a studio to work in as we were finishing at WT. So we opened a little pottery space there and kind of built on the success of that. We moved that here to Amarillo because as we both graduated, we knew we wanted to make pots. So we needed a space to do it. And these stores had been in Megan's family for about 30 years. Certainly the most popular thing I make is the microwave bacon cooker, for sure. I had no idea how popular that was going to be and that it works, and that's why it's popular. I make everything from cups, mugs, plates, tableware, I make cremation urns also, and that is a big part of our business. That's moving forward, and that's kind of a service for me. I felt really strongly about that when I started making those, because I've made them throughout the years for people when they would come to me and ask, but I've started moving into that market also. What really spurred me to make those is a woman had come in and asked me to make one for her son, and so I made 6. Because she couldn't really tell me what she liked. So I thought, well, I'll make 6 different ones. And she came in and I had them up on a counter. And she lost her breath when she saw this one. And she just picked it up and held it in her hands like this. And she said, it's perfect. And I thought, wow, that's reaction. It just for a second gave her comfort. That's it. That's where I thought, well, that's what I should be doing too. I'm the visiting assistant professor of art at WT. So I teach 2 sections of ceramics and then sculpture. And so the sculpture is really wonderful for me because I have so many ideas for sculpture because I work in 3 dimensions all the time and never have any time to execute it. So I can kind of spill all these ideas that I have and thoughts and let them run with it. And it's really fun. They're learning to use their own creativity, which is great. It's just fun for me to be out of here also and be there, making things in a different place around their energy. My ceramics class, I'd just work in there with them. It's just really exciting to work around younger people who are considering a career in art, or maybe they want to teach. So I love that. When I'm not making pots, I'm not the same person. I know that. It calms me down. Honestly, I think the thing that it really does for me is that, and it's the historical aspect of pottery, that if those are objects throughout time, it's basically like you're basically leaving your mark in stone. I mean, once the clay's fired, it's here forever. And so the oldest pots that I've been in contact with are about 9,000 years old. And it had the maker's fingerprints all over it. And right there you think, that's power. I mean, that's incredible. You know, it's like you want to leave your mark. And I just wanted to, I know that's part of it for me, is like sentimentality. I like the fact that those objects are here, and that's like my expression going through time, you know. But then the other part of it, and there's so many parts, the other part of it is that they can be used, and they're in a house, and someone's having contact with a work of art every day. You know, like the mug is the most intimate object that you can have. I mean, it touches your mouth. And for so many of my customers, it's the first thing they touch in the morning, sometimes at night. When I start in the morning, I honestly, now this is in my maturity as a maker. You know, when I used to make things, it was very conscious. Now my best pots are unconscious. Like I'll start in the morning and say, I'm gonna make mugs or something, and I just start. I try not to think too much. I just I'm reacting to it. So I'm coming up and, you know, I move one area of the clay and I think, well, that's kind of a neat area for texture. So I'll put texture on it. I try not to be too critical on myself, because my best pieces, I don't ever remember them. I see them later and you think, man, that was pretty good. That was really good. It's because you've digested your technique. And that's how, it's just different. It's hard to explain, you know? I mean, all those dishes I made for 6-car, I can look back. I mean, there were some, you know, you might think they're all alike. Well, they're not. Like, I mean, it's like a giant family. And there's some of those that I had a real hard time letting go down there. You know, because you're putting them into an environment where they're going to get used. They're going to get broken. And there were some that were just drop dead gorgeous. Like, oh, man, I hope that happens again. You know, but it's not. The thing I love about clay the most, it's not the feel, it's the smell of it. And my students at WT the other day, I think they were making fun of me because I had just buried my face in a bag of clay because I could smell it again. It was a different clay, and it smelled more musty than the clay I use. I mean, it's like you become nose blind to it, you know? I mean, I'm sure it smells musty in here to you right now. I don't smell it at all, you know? All the clays are different too. Like I just tried 17 different clays to see if I could get a new one. And porcelain is so smooth and so pure. And the clay I use usually has more iron in it. It's more impure, a little rocky. You never know what you're gonna get there. Little iron specks show up in it. They're almost like moles, and I love that. I like the things that I don't know are gonna happen. You can make it predictable. I don't want predictable at all. That's what keeps you coming back. That's what makes you wake up early Christmas morning. I mean, what's gonna happen? You know, and so, I mean, there are things that you can do to make it very regular, but that is very boring. I won't go down that road. I've been down that road. It's not the road I like at all, you know. The first stoneware glazes, I work in stoneware, were made from wood ashes, and that originated about 4,700 years ago in China, because they were firing wood-fired pottery kilns, and eventually they were so genius that they tipped the wood-fired kilns up a hill at about a 40-degree angle. And then that wood ash would get drug up on the sides of the pots, and they could watch it melt. And then they were so smart that they thought, well, if we mix that ash with water and a little clay to bind it, then you get a whole glaze coating that's easy to clean. Yeah, I'm sure that's what they were thinking. So and then you have Celadon glazes and things like that show up. But the reason I like that is because there's such a dynamic surface, and you never, ever know what you're gonna get. I get the whole spectrum of glossy to matte to crystals in there. And it can be a nightmare sometimes, but most of the time it's pretty good. I fire usually between 50 and 60 times a year, sometimes more. And even still, it is, even if I've used those ash glazes in the previous firing, still to spend the 6 hours to get the thing loaded and all in there, I think the whole time I'm thinking, oh, this is the one. This is the one where I'm going to get bit, you know? And that it's just because it's happened. And you know, that's where it keeps you on the edge of your seat, you know? I mean, you get your confidence up, but the thing is like, if you didn't love to do it, you couldn't keep going. I mean, you have to be okay with, you know what? It might all get broken, but I had a great time making it. I'll do it again, you know? And that's so many people ask about the 6-car dishes. Like, oh, you must be terrified that they, you know, someone breaks them all. It's like, well, you don't get it. Like, I loved making them. I'd be happy to make them again. Like, it's not about the money. It's about the joy of making it. That's what's so fun. And I love being a human that makes things. And I wish everybody made things. What feeds me just to keep making?
Energy
is that one day I'm not going to be able to make them anymore. Hopefully I'll die making pots when I'm about 102. Because my worst fear on earth is to not have pots to make. And that is an absolute fact. Like, I swear that's my only anxiety, is that I will run out of customers that want to buy things and love my pots.
Talk about being on Route 66.
You never know who's going to come in, I'll tell you that. I mean, it's really fun. And I didn't think about it too much when we opened up, but the European, I get Russian traffic coming through, Germans. We've had very famous people come in that unfortunately I didn't know that was them until they left. You know, in 2000, I think it was 2008, Paul McCartney came in with his wife, and I didn't know it was him. I was just working. So they had pulled up that morning. It was about 10 in the morning. I guess they'd stayed at the Ambassador. I didn't know. And they had pulled up out front in their little silver Ford Bronco. It was a 1990 silver Bronco, something like that. The reason I remember it's because a guy I knew in high school had his stolen, and so I thought, oh, that's interesting. And this woman got out who very clearly was not from the Texas Panhandle, and she came to the door and asked if they could look around. I said, sure, yeah, I mean, the open sign's there. And so she goes back to the car and gets him. She whispers something, and this little man, or I couldn't really tell, came around the car, and he had a longer coat on and kind of a weird wig. I thought it was a wig and big glasses, so I thought, well, that's a strange looking person, and just went back to work. And they made 2 laps around the store, and I did what I always do, and I went to the door there as they were leaving, and she said, thank you so much, it was very beautiful. And he turned around and smiled at me, and when he smiled at me, I thought, that looks familiar, that's somebody. And then my mother-in-law called 30 minutes later to tell me that they'd stay at the Ambassador. They're doing Route 66 for his 64th birthday. And I thought, oh my gosh, they were just here. And I missed it. So that's my Paul McCartney story.